Okay, welcome to week 2. As you can see, our homepage has updated and there's a new to-do list. This video is a good place to start. We are going to cover 3 modules this week. I've listed the 3 here: cognitive biases, standards, and proving validity. And if you scroll down to our schedule/course module/textbook, you can see for week 2, we've got 3 modules due by Monday, 8/31. You can complete these modules in any order. It makes most sense to either start or end with cognitive biases and do these 2 modules starting with 1.2 and then 2.1. Here's how they're related. In Unit 1, the focus is on understanding arguments, and last week we introduced the definition of argument and statement, because arguments are made up of statements. And now we're going to introduce standards for calling an argument good, essentially. And then what we'll do is sort of branch off from here. In Unit 2, we'll look at one set of standards for calling an argument good, deductive standards, essentially logic, the study of whether or not arguments are valid. And then in Unit 3 later, we'll look at another set of standards for calling an argument good. So right now we're just introducing what those standards are, and then in the next unit on your to-do list, we're going to look at how to prove one of them. And actually you'll see everything in Unit 2 is about proving validity, and we're introducing that now. In the remainder of Unit 3, we're going to focus on understanding arguments by being able to identify, analyze, reconstruct them, so that we can go on to evaluate them. And then we're going to introduce some stuff related to cognitive biases. So that's the plan for the week. Now you can navigate either by going to the schedule down here or just use your to-do list up top. Probably makes more sense to do it up top. So let's say you're going to start with cognitive biases. We'll start with this survey. You don't need to do anything to complete this survey, just dig right in. And then your task is to complete a homework based on some materials here. So this brings us to the same place as if we had clicked in this schedule. At the top of a module, you'll have a description, you'll have learning objectives, and then usually some advice for completing the module effectively and efficiently. We're going to be looking at Unit 4 Mod 2 up until like week 7. So what I've got at the top here is advice for what to do each week. This week, your goal is to achieve learning objectives 1 through 3 up here. And to do that, start with the survey. That was linked to at the top of the homepage, but if you scroll down a little bit, it's right here as well. That's the same thing. Then read pages 1 through 18 of the text. That's right here. And then complete the homework associated with that bit of the text. And this week, the homework is really answering questions about the text and doesn't require a lot of skill or practice exercises to complete, just reading the text and answering questions. Okay, let's go back to our modules. Oops, sorry, home. So once you've completed cognitive biases, or maybe you want to start here, move on to Unit 1 Mod 2 Standards, which is really introducing standards for evaluating arguments, especially validity. This module is going to ask you to start by making a copy of a worksheet. It's the first thing I put on our homepage, and if you go to the materials, you'll be prompted to open up this worksheet then as well. When you click the link, you're going to be prompted to make a copy of a Google Docs. You're going to need a Google account in order to make a copy of the document this way. Okay, let's take a look at the module. Again, we have description, learning objectives, and some advice. In most modules, there will be more content than most people need to actually look at. Just don't forget that your goal is the learning objectives and to be able to demonstrate them in the homework. So I will give you advice each week on what I think is the most effective and also the most efficient way to move through the material. What's going to give you the most bang for your buck? And I recommend opening up that worksheet and keeping it open while you complete this week's material. It's going to ask you to put examples of arguments into a chart, and you will find examples in the text, in the videos, in the practice exercises, in the homework. Any of those are fair game for putting them into the chart. So then read the text. Sometimes the text is more or less important, and I'll try to indicate when I think you should definitely focus on the text and when you could skip the text and just watch a lecture if you prefer that. In this case, I think the text is pretty important, so read the text and then move to the homework quickly. Move to the homework, see how well you can do, and if you're feeling at all confident, even a little bit, submit it. Because you get 3 attempts, don't worry about wasting that first attempt just to use it to see where you're at. Then you'll see explanations for anything that you missed, and then you can use that to go back and study more effectively and efficiently. So then you could go back and either read the text more carefully, or probably the better plan is to do practice exercises. Reading will feel comfortable. Anything that looks familiar will feel like you know it and understand it, but you won't really know if you understand it until you test yourself, and that's why practice exercises are the best way to study. Okay, so we've got the worksheet, we've got the text. The practice exercises come in the form of worksheets if you want to print something out and do it by hand, or I've made flashcard versions of practice exercises down here. For definitions, yeah, you want to memorize them, but for practice, you want to test yourself. It's not about memorization, it's about testing your ability to apply concepts and skills. Okay, so that is Unit 1, Mod 2 Standards, where you get introduced to the concept of validity. And when you move on to Unit 2, Mod 1, Proving Validity, this is where we start doing logic, and this is where we introduce how we prove that an argument is valid. Again, learning objectives, advice for completing the material. Now, one thing you'll see that's kind of weird about the way I structured the to-do list is that I recommend you start with 1.2, then do 2.1, and then go back to 1.2. If you attempt this homework at your first time and you don't feel like you've mastered the material, maybe before you go back and really study for this, move on to 2.1 Proving Validity, because this material will actually help you to complete this. So do this just to sort of see where you're at, move on to the next module, really focus on this one, and then go back and see if the homework makes more sense now, and if not, do the practice exercises in more detail, reach out with questions, come to office hours, which are Tuesdays 3 to 4 p.m. You just click this link and you're in a Zoom office hours. I'll be just sitting there waiting. I'm here specifically to answer questions. You don't need to have a webcam, and you don't have to use Zoom. You can send me a message. I will be online. And then end by submitting a worksheet and completing your week 2 check-in. Now, the other thing I wanted to share in this week's video is that our Pronto is finally set up and running. It wasn't during week 1. So if you open Pronto while you're in Canvas, logged into our course, it's immediately going to open it into our course chat. And this is a chat for the whole class. If you post something here, you're posting to the whole class. You can also open it in a larger window. And here's the way that you can send me a direct message. You can also message other people in the class. One thing you might want to do is advertise a study group. If you want to form a study group, getting interested parties, this is a place you could post that, and then you can create a new group just for your study group to have a Pronto chat. Of course, as per the academic integrity standards for the course, if you create a study group, you should let me know about that study group. Maybe include me in your, if you make any private study group chats, just include me in it, and that will count as letting me know that you've created a study group. Okay, that concludes my announcements for week 2. I look forward to your week 2 check-ins.